Shalom.
Is wearing a wig an acceptable way for a married woman to cover her hair?
The simple answer to that question is no. It is not an acceptable way for a woman to cover her hair, and the reason for my saying this is as follows. The basis that is usually quoted in defense of this practice is the fact that the Mishnah, Masechet Shabbat, in the 6th perek of Masechet Shabbat, speaks of a pe'ah nochrith, something that a woman may wear on Shabbat even, and walk into the courtyard of her home wearing a pe'ah nochrith. This is in the context of things that a woman may or may not wear on Shabbat because of the possibility that if she walks into the public domain to Reshut HaRabim on Shabbat wearing certain things, and she may remove them, take them off and show them to her friends or what have you, then she will end up carrying them in the street on Shabbat, which is Asur. And the Mishnah states that a woman may wear a pe'ah nochrith in the haser, in the courtyard of her home, but not implying not in the street. From this, some of the Mefarashim learned that wearing a wig for a married woman is permissible, because they understood the term pe'ah nochrith to refer to what we call a wig. This was the opinion, for example, of Rabbi Yoshua Boaz, the author of the well-known Perush, or additions and notes to the Rif called Shiltei HaGiburim, Masechet Shabbat, Perek Shishi. There he writes, based on this Mishnah, that it is permissible to wear a wig, as we see based on, in this Mishnah, that it is such a thing as possible. This interpretation is incorrect, because the term pe'ah nochrith does not refer to a wig. It refers to something quite different. We can understand this, first of all, by examining the term itself, pe'ah nochrith. The word pe'ah in Hebrew means an end, a corner, or the border of something. In which case we must ask ourselves, why would a wig be referred to as a corner, or the end or corner of something, or the border of something? This makes no sense. Something which is worn over one's head in the fashion of a hat, but it has hair on top of it, why would that be referred to as a corner or an end or some such thing? The term pe'ah nochrith refers, as the Gra, the Gaon Vilna, writes in his Perush on this Mishnah, Masechet Shabbat, the term pe'ah nochrith refers to what we would call perhaps in English today a hairpiece. That is to say, a piece of some material on which hair has been attached, somehow glued or sewn on, and this is placed under the woman's head covering, says the Gra, and so that some of it will stick out, because that is the normal way of things, that a woman who covers her hair does not cover all of her hair. Some of her hair is visible. This was always the norm in ancient times and down to the present day. This has been the practice of the vast majority of righteous Jewish women who do cover their hair. Some of their hair is visible, but if a woman, for example, suffers from a certain disease or condition whereby she has no hair or little hair, and therefore she is unhappy with the way she looks when she covers her hair, because not much hair is sticking out, not much hair is visible, she takes such an article, such a device, and places it under her scarf or head covering of some kind, so that this will stick out and seem as if it is her own hair, and therefore she will look like most women. She will look normal and not unseemly or ugly or strange. This would also be relevant, for example, to a person undergoing chemotherapy or any other such medical procedure or other medical conditions whereby there is hair losses involved. So this is the concept of a pe'ah nochrith, says the Gra. It is an additional piece of material or some other substance to which hair is attached, which the woman places under her hair covering, some of which sticks out, in order that she would look normal and as most women do. If that's the case, and this is the only rational explanation for the term pe'ah nochrith, because otherwise the term pe'ah makes no sense at all. But if it is a hairpiece that sticks out, then it is a corner, it's an end, it's something which sticks out of the hair covering and can well be referred to as a pe'ah. Just as the end of a field, for example, is referred to as the pe'ah, that which is left at the end of the field for the poor to take for themselves, that is called the pe'ah. It's something which sticks out, that remains at the end. In this fashion we can understand the term pe'ah nuchrith. If that is the case, then a wig has nothing at all to do with a pe'ah nuchrith. One might add that Rabbi Yoshua Boaz, who was, it must be mentioned, a tremendous Gaon b'Torah, and many of the standard tools that we find in the Gemara, such as Masoret Hashas and Torah Or, etc., all printed on the daf, are the result of his work when he was a very young man in his 20s, all of which show his tremendous knowledge and memory and command of the Torah sources. He lived in Italy in the 16th century. He was born apparently at the beginning of the 16th century. And this is the period known as the Renaissance period. And as a result, it seems quite reasonable to assume that because he saw some Jewish women in Italy copying their non-Jewish counterparts, women at that time in Italy were wearing wigs, etc., as a matter of course, certainly in high society. And it's possible, very possible in fact, that many Jewish women picked up this practice from their non-Jewish neighbors, and he felt he had to come up with some explanation, some yishuv, some rationalization of this practice. But this is not a true and healthy basis to upturn a well-known halacha, and the source from the Mishnah is not at all convincing, and therefore is to be rejected.
Is it not true that some authorities claim that wearing a wig is preferable, since then not even one hair is visible?
It is true, some have made this claim, and the reason for making this claim is the fact that they are basing themselves on a statement in the Zohar which states that a woman must cover all of her hair so that not even one hair is visible. This is, of course, an extreme and almost irrational claim to make. It is quite impossible, essentially, for a woman to do so, unless she, A, shaves her head, which is, of course, a terrible and improper thing to do, or B, if she chooses to wear a wig, which is also an improper course of action. Because of the notion of the Zohar, which is not at all based on any ancient source, all the ancient sources from the Mishnah, the Gemara, and the Rishonim all indicate clearly that righteous Jewish women who covered their hair always had some hair showing. There are many sources to this effect, and I'm not going to go into them now in detail, but the fact is that the claim of the Zohar is a immense and unnecessary stringency, and it is not practical, essentially is not doable at all, and the notion that we should not observe this halakha correctly in order to live up to the false standard placed before us by the Zohar is a good example of the negative impact of certain mystical streams of thinking affecting the halachic discourse within Am Yisrael.
Is it better that a married woman wear a wig or not cover her hair at all?
I have been asked this question on a number of occasions, and I have always answered that it is far better that a woman not cover her hair at all than wear a wig. And my reason for saying this is twofold. A, we have just explained why wearing a wig is entirely unacceptable, and in fact it usually achieves the opposite purpose. That is to say, rather than somehow reducing the woman's appeal and attractiveness in the public domain vis-a-vis others, the wig usually does, which is the aim of covering the hair, the wig usually achieves the opposite purpose. That is number one, and therefore it is simply not achieving the aim and the purpose of the halakha. Second of all, and this is perhaps even more serious, and that is the fact that this encourages people to view halakha as something which does not make sense and need not make sense. The fact that the Torah and the halakha are a system, and that they involve different practices and conceptions which are totally irrational, which fly in the face of logic. That is to say, to claim that a woman needs to cover her hair, but if she wears a wig which is several times more attractive than her own hair, that is fine. that is a clearly irrational and intellectually dishonest approach to things. And also, if it's being done for the reason that we mentioned before, of not showing even one hair, that is also an unacceptable reason for wearing such a device. Therefore, this form of thinking leads to a warped and distorted understanding of halakha, and leads people to accept that there need be no connection between intellectual honesty and reality and facts on the one hand, and the Torah and halakha on the other hand.